Assalamu alaikum and a very warm welcome to everyone tuning in. I'm Mr. Hussain, a meal expert at Premium Mountain Communities Consultants, coming to you straight from Gilgit-Baltistan. Thank you so much for joining me today. Whether you're an M&E officer, a project manager, or maybe a student just stepping into the development world, we all know one thing for sure. We spend a tremendous amount of time and money just collecting data. But in this explainer, we're going to talk about why simply collecting that data is never, ever enough. We're going to dive into how we can actually transform those raw numbers into actionable results, better decisions, and ultimately lasting impact. Let's get started.
All right, here's our roadmap for today's explainer. We'll start with why using findings actually matters, look at 10 practical uses for them, explore feedback and learning, tackle the common obstacles we all face, and wrap up with strategies for sharing information.
Okay, section 1, why using findings matters and how we move from data to decisions. So the core philosophy of monitoring, evaluation, accountability, and learning, or MEAL, is honestly pretty simple. Data only has value when it reaches the right people at the exact right time to inform a decision. Think about it. A brilliantly written report that just sits on a shelf, it's literally useless. In the whole results-based M&E cycle, all that heavy lifting you do, the readiness assessments, selecting indicators, getting baselines, it all leads right here to step 9, which is using findings. This is that absolutely crucial pivot point where your prep work finally translates into action. Picture this. You're making a big project decision, but you have zero evidence. What happens? Well, your decisions risk being completely arbitrary. You're just relying on gut feelings, assumptions, or maybe just how things were always done. But when you flip that and base decisions on solid M&E evidence, it's a total game changer. You can actually justify your budget requests, improve performance, and channel your scarce resources into the things that are actually working. Evidence gives you the confidence to scale up your successes and boldly cut what just isn't working. Moving right along to section 2, 10 uses of M&E findings, taking all this theory into practice. Let's look at the day-to-day reality here. Harry Hotry from the Urban Institute laid out some incredibly practical ways we can use performance findings. If you're in the development sector, these are basically your superpowers. First, they let you answer public demands for accountability. Second, they help you justify your budget because you actually have the proof that you need those funds. Third, they guide where your resources go. Fourth, they act like an early warning system for performance problems. But number 5, that one's my absolute favorite. Motivating staff. When their team has a clear line of sight between their daily grind and the big picture project goals, they go from just being employees to highly motivated partners. And it doesn't stop there. The next 5 are just as powerful. You can use your findings to monitor contractors. Get this, in places like Australia, budgets aren't even given to contractors until their results are evaluated. How's that for accountability? Findings also give you baseline data for deeper research, streamline your service delivery, and totally anchor your strategic planning. And finally, number 10, sharing your findings builds public trust. Transparency is the bedrock of trust, right? Let's look at an amazing real-world example of this in action. The New York City Police Department completely revolutionized how they operate using a specialized results-based M&E system called CompStat. Instead of waiting a year and a half for national crime stats to come out, they started compiling and analyzing real-time, neighborhood-level data every single day. That means field managers could instantly deploy resources exactly where violent crime was spiking. And the results? They are absolutely staggering. By relying on this real-time evidence, New York City saw burglaries drop by 53%, robberies by 54%, and the murder rate plummeted by 67%. Over just 5 years. 67%. It just proves that when you build a system that gets the right data to the right people instantly, you can achieve monumental, life-saving impact. If you want another benchmark of a mature, well-oiled M&E system, check out the U.S. Department of Labor. They didn't just set vague ideas. They established 3 massive strategic goals, like creating a prepared workforce. But then they tied every single goal directly to measurable outcomes, like specifically increasing employment rates for retrained workers. And to keep themselves honest, they run biannual reviews measuring those exact results against their baselines. It's a fantastic, rigorous rhythm that any NGO or ministry could adopt. All right, section 3, feedback, knowledge, and learning. Let's talk about building institutional memory. Using findings isn't just about quick operational fixes like budgets or contracts. It's really about generating continuous feedback so your whole organization gets smarter over time. I absolutely love this quote from the UNDP. They say, an M&E framework that generates knowledge and promotes learning is, in its own right, an important means of capacity development. That completely reframes what we do. You aren't just an auditor checking a box. You are literally the engine of learning and capacity building for your entire sector. And true organizational learning is a really dynamic, continuous loop. It's not just passively reporting numbers, it's a culture of investigation. You combine your on-the-ground experience with active inquiry, you share that knowledge widely, and you make sure that the data is both accessible and highly relevant to the people actually doing the hard work. Section 4. Common obstacles to learning and navigating those inevitable hurdles.
Okay, I can almost hear some of you M&E practitioners saying, Mr. Hussain, this is great in theory, but my office would never go for it. And honestly, you're not wrong. There are huge behavioral and political roadblocks here. The folks at the OECD have identified a few major ones. The biggest is a blame culture. If admitting a failure gets you punished, nobody is going to be honest, right? Then there's the pressure to spend, where we just rush to burn through budgets without pausing to see what actually worked last time. Throw in a lack of incentives, staff tunnel vision, and losing institutional memory every time a good employee leaves, and yeah, it's a tough environment.
But listen, we can absolutely overcome these. It just takes proactive leadership. You have to train your staff on how to actually use outcome information. One great trick: hold regular, blameless, how are we doing sessions right after a report drops. Reward the teams that hit good outcomes, even if it's just non-monetary praise. Use your data to actively celebrate your wins, and just as importantly, to identify common problems so you can brainstorm solutions together as a team. Finally, Section 5, Strategies for Sharing Information and Empowering Your Stakeholders.
Here's the hard truth. Generating the perfect evaluation report is completely pointless if you don't actively communicate it to the people who can actually make changes. For internal sharing, organizations usually use a mix of approaches. Active approaches are things like formal management reviews, like the UK Prime Minister's Office, which does strict 6-month reviews. Passive approaches are more structural, like setting up performance contracts or using public scorecards to create a bit of healthy peer pressure. The real magic happens when you blend these together to ensure your data actually forces a decision.
But you can't just keep it internal. You've got to share data externally to empower the public. The media is a huge partner here in advocating for better governance. You've also got freedom of information laws, which let citizens demand answers directly. Putting out e-government portals, publishing your annual budgets for anyone to read, and engaging with civil society. All of this ensures that your M&E findings spark a much broader, society-wide demand for accountability. A brilliant example of this kind of transparent oversight is the Canadian government. Every year, their departments have to submit reports on plans and priorities to Parliament, and then follow up with actual performance reports. They track 19 high-level societal indicators, things like the health of their citizens and economic opportunities. By making these indicators easy to understand and compare over time, they give their parliamentarians the exact evidence they need to hold the government accountable. It's a beautiful system. So, I want to leave you with this final thought today. Collecting the data, that's just the warm-up. The real work, the stuff that actually changes communities, improves governance, and saves lives, only happens when that data is put to work. So, what are you going to do with your next M&E report? Is it going to sit in a drawer gathering dust, or will it be the catalyst that drives real change in your organization? Thank you all so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep evaluating, and keep making a difference out there. Kala Hafiz.